Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back yet again to another episode of the Dirty and Driven Podcast. My name is James Devaney. I am your host on this fine Friday episode. This is the show where our goal is to bring people to the blue-collar world and teach them how to kick ass. You see, there's a shortage of people coming into the trades right now, and no shortage of people leaving the trades due to retirement or other things going on. So we want to build a more sustainable future in the construction industry. Our main mission here is to gain, train, and retain solid people in the trades. Today, I'm joined and talking about this with a wonderful woman named Brittany. Brittany goes by Builder with a Bow on Instagram. Be sure to give her a follow at Builder with a Bow. She talks a lot about being a woman in construction, how cool her job is, some of her other passions such as writing for the construction industry, and just a lot of other cool stuff like that. Brittany had a very unconventional path to joining the construction industry. And by that, I mean she took a very conventional go to school, go to college path, and she realized that getting a communications degree, that jelly just wasn't her jam. So she decided to join the construction world and the GC side of things, the vertical side of things, and just right now she's working as an assistant superintendent and learning and growing and become better. She's been doing it for several years. Great story. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Be sure to give her a follow. Also, be sure to give us a follow at Dirty and Driven. You can click our link tree down in the show notes, and it'll take you to all of our social media platforms. Also, if you enjoy the show, be sure to give us a 5-star review or share the show. That is how we grow, guys, is through reviews and through sharing it. If you like the show, if you like the interview with Brittany, put it on your Instagram story or something so other people can hear it. We'd really appreciate it. And also, if you like the show, we're not going to be running ads during the show. We're not going to be filling your ears full of bullshit like that. Consider giving us a tip in the tip jar. This is a lot of work, and it's a lot of time that we spend. And so if you drop $1 in the tip jar, we'd really appreciate it so we can keep getting better equipment. All of it goes back into the show and back into the Dirty and Driven project. And our sole goal here is to invest in the trades and invest in the people of the trades, make it a better place. One last thing, if you're new here and you want a free sticker, all you got to do is DM, email, or connect with us on our website and just send us the word sticker, and I will mail you a sticker and a handwritten thank you note anywhere in the world, I don't care where, for free. So check that out if you want to do it. Give Brittany a follow. That's right. It's Brittany, bitch. Here it is. So you're out of Tennessee, right?
Yes. Yeah. Currently, I'm in Nashville.
Cool. Nashville. Is that where you live, is Nashville?
I live just outside the city, but I'm still close to downtown.
Nashville area. That's cool. So what do you do up there?
I work for a general contractor here. Right now, I'm on a multifamily project. So I'm an assistant super with the general contractor, and so I walk around a job site all day, making sure stuff gets done and stuff gets done right.
Nice. How long have you been doing that?
About 4 years.
4 years. Cool. Were you in the construction industry before that?
I worked in construction for 2 years up in Boston, and I've been in Tennessee for 2 years. But before that, I did not expect to end up in construction.
Huh. So you were in Boston. How'd you end up in Tennessee from Boston?
I wanted to move. I always wanted to kind of leave New England. I actually went to college in North Carolina, but graduated, didn't have a job. So I moved back home with my parents. I grew up in New Hampshire. I'm from that area. So I stayed home for a couple years, tried a lot of different jobs out, ended up in construction. That gave me enough stability and enough skills to go anywhere I wanted in the country and find a job. So I just looked for a city that was growing that would have a lot of demand, and started sending resumes. So I moved to Nashville after I got a job offer, but I had never visited the city and I didn't know anybody here when I moved.
Yeah. So you're from the same area as our boy Zach Taylor, aren't you?
Yep, I've been talking to him on Instagram recently. He
Yeah.
always sends me updates of Boston traffic in case I miss it.
Boston traffic, something else. I haven't experienced Nashville traffic, but I can imagine it's probably not near as bad.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I work on the complete opposite side of the city, and my commute home, like on bad traffic days, is like a half hour.
Oh yeah.
So it's really not bad. But everybody here complains about it because it is getting worse. Like the city is growing, and they're just
Hmm.
not used to it. The roads are terrible, which you would not really expect for a place that doesn't get as severe of a winter. But yeah, traffic's getting worse, but nowhere close to Boston.
Yeah. Of course, they were able to plan it a little better. The thing about Boston is all those old buildings are there, and they just kind of had to build roads around them as cars became a thing.
Yeah.
So you send out some resumes and stuff like that to just all over the country. Where else did you send resumes to area wise?
I was actually looking in Colorado, and then I don't think I actually applied to any jobs, but I was looking at Charlotte as another potential place. I think Colorado just seemed like a little bit too far, even though, like, once you're moving more than 1,000 miles away, it's kind of arbitrary how far, but Nashville felt like a little bit safer. So yeah, I did have a job offer in Colorado if I wanted to take it, but
That's
I
cool.
ended up in Nashville.
Yeah, Colorado's been a trendy thing for people, especially because like where I'm at in Oklahoma, it's not that far away. It's kind of like where you're at, where it's a 12-hour drive away, but it's close enough you can make it home. So a lot of people have been moving there, and I don't know what Nashville's property values or apartment rent is. I'm sure it's high, but Colorado is just insane how expensive it is to live there.
Yeah, I think it's a little cheaper in Nashville. I mean, I was able to when I first moved down here, I was able to get a decent place for way less than I would have spent in Boston. And even with all the housing prices of COVID and everything, I was able to actually buy a house last year.
Yeah. Do you feel like a cowboy yet?
I mean, I have switched to slip-on work boots, like cowboy boots,
Yeah.
instead of lace-ups. So, yeah, definitely feeling a little more southern. I went on vacation 2 weeks ago. I was up in Alaska visiting my parents. They're traveling, and we were going like on a boat to go see a glacier. And the lady was like checking tickets, and I walk up and I've got like jeans and my boots are tucked into my jeans so you can see them. And she was like, "Oh, you're not from here." And she was just looking at my shoes, and I was like, "Oh God." I didn't even think about it. This is what I wear every day.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, I guess it's kind of a tell.
Whenever I was in Boston one time, because I'm sure you weren't wearing cowboy boots in Boston,
No.
I went to Boston one time and I had on a pair of Lucchese cowboy boots, which are not cheap boots. And this guy comes up to me and he just goes, I'm not even going to try a Boston accent. I can't. But he was like, what the hell are those boots? Those are the ugliest thing I've ever seen on somebody's feet before. I was like, man, these ain't cheap. These are a highly coveted pair of boots where I come from. He said, well, you look stupid here. I was like, okay.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's so much more common to see like slip-on boots here than lace-ups, and definitely a difference on a construction site when you walk on and just look around. So it was kind of interesting. It took me a little while to get used to.
Yeah. So what kind of got you interested in construction in the first place?
So my dad was a superintendent for a general contractor basically my whole life. When I was a little kid, he would take me to his projects. Like I could skip school every now and then to go see what he was working on. And
Ooh.
those were some of the best days. And I always told him like, oh yeah, like I want to do what you do. You know, construction's really cool. And he'd always talk about like, oh, you know, you could come work for me as a laborer and make this much money at, you know, Boston union rates. And I was like, okay, get me a job. And he was like, you don't want to do construction. And he felt that like he was kind of stuck doing construction because he dropped out of college. That was kind of the only thing that he figured out that he was good at. And he didn't always enjoy it. So his whole mission in life was basically like provide a better future for his kids so they didn't have to work jobs like construction. So like school was always really easy for me, and he, you know, go to college, get a good job. That's what I heard growing up. So that's what I tried to do. I graduated high school, did all the honors classes, went to college, and was pursuing, I got my degree in communications. So I thought I would end up in like public relations or advertising, because I really enjoyed writing as well. So I was headed in that direction. And then I graduated college and had absolutely no plan and no job lined up. So I moved back home and got a couple part-time jobs, got an internship, did not really enjoy it, was going out of my mind staring at a computer all day. So just to try something different for a summer, I applied to a job landscaping. My dad and I had gotten into like gardening and stuff in high school. And when I moved back home from college, it was something we did together.
Nice.
So I was just like, I need to be outside. I need to do something different. So I got hired by a landscaping company and just joined their maintenance team and fell in love with it. So they hired me on full time. I did snow removal and plowing in the winter. And then I started to get like cold feet about like having all this student debt and this degree that I wasn't using. So I started like looking around for jobs again, ended up in fashion merchandising for a children's clothing company.
It was the construction.
Yeah. So I went from landscaping to fashion because it was advertised as a marketing position. It was borderline, but that was a very interesting job. I actually learned a ton. I was only there for 5 months, and then like my boss was a little crazy. So I was like, I need to find a way out. Because there is definitely not like a future in fashion for me. So that's when like I had already done landscaping. So my dad kind of took me a little more seriously when I was like, hey, can I work in construction now? So his company was actually looking for assistant supers. And he was like, well, if you want to put a resume together and go through the whole interview process, like I'll pass it along to, you know, the president of the company. So that's what I did. And I interviewed, and he was willing to hire me just based on the fact that I was interested. I was willing to learn. I knew I was basically starting at nothing. But that's how much the industry needs people right now. So you don't need to really come in with a background. You just need to be willing to learn and able to just put up with all the guys on site.
Yeah. So when you were landscaping, because that's also where I got my start in the industry, what kind of landscaping were you doing? Were you doing like hardscapes, or were you doing mowing, or what kind of landscaping were you doing?
So I was on the maintenance side of the company. I was doing a lot of like the detailing, pruning in the summer, spring cleanups, fall cleanups, basically everything maintenance except for mowing. And like, so I started, and then about 2 weeks later, they found out that I knew how to drive a truck and trailer, and they were desperate for crew leaders. So I ended up with a couple guys working under me for most of the summer.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think that a landscape company is such a great way to get into the industry, especially for somebody that's not really sure about it. Because you can go and you can do the work that we do now on a much smaller scale, and you can lead a crew and you can do this kind of stuff. And I don't know, it's anybody who's like, well, I might be interested in that. I feel like you could work for a landscaper for a summer and really see if you have a knack for it or not.
Yeah, I think it definitely gives you like a good perspective of even just like the business cycle. You see it on a smaller scale of like this is what the client wants and this is what's involved in doing that. And I think if I had stayed in landscaping, I definitely would have got into like the new install and hardscaping side of it. But yeah, it was really enjoyable, and it was just so different to have a job where I was going out 8 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and like physically using my body, being out in the sun. I was like coming home tired, and I was able to fall asleep a lot faster. So it was definitely a shift in like how I felt, not only about like my career, but just in my body physically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. And it's great that you got some experience before going into that assistant super role. And I mean, you kind of knew what it entails and you gained a little appreciation for it. So when you went to originally work as the assistant super, were you working with your dad?
No, we actually never got to do a project together. He retired last year, but I was working, it was a pretty small company. So we were at the same company, it was family owned. I was working with one of the other supers. They had just started a renovation project. So I got to start from the beginning of a project right when I started. And it's interesting going in as an assistant super who doesn't know a lot, but you have to also remember that, especially at smaller companies, a lot of these superintendents aren't used to having an assistant. So they have to learn how to use an assistant, what to delegate, how to teach. So there's definitely learning on both sides of that.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't even thought about that, about how like a lot of supers aren't used to that. And I did that same thing where I kind of was that kind of an assistant super role, more of like the office. I was assistant to the superintendent, but I did that for a summer, just doing that labor type stuff. And I see that, like, you go and you do stuff and they're like, well, do this, this, and that. And then like you do it. And then they're like, well, shit, now I don't know what to do with you now. Meanwhile, they have a lot on their plate. They don't really know how to delegate stuff.
Yeah, and that was definitely something that I saw shift in my dad's career. Like when I was in high school and college, he started having an assistant and realizing the work that needed to go into really like mentoring somebody up into a superintendent position. So, and that's kind of what shifted for him as well. For like, he actually enjoyed, I don't know about going to work every day, but he was taking a lot more pride in what he was doing. He was talking about the labor shortages and all this stuff at home. And like, I was really interested in that. And the idea of like trying to change the image of the industry. And he really put a lot of work into growing the assistants that he was working with. And I didn't see it necessarily firsthand from the work side, but just being around him a lot, like, and the way that he would talk about work, it was definitely, you could tell that there was a difference from when he first started in construction, and that was just what he was doing to pay the bills.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's so awesome whenever somebody can find someone that they can mentor and that wants to learn. I think it gives you a different sense of purpose. It's more of, whenever you can invest in somebody like that, it definitely goes from, I'm just here to build buildings and get a paycheck, to, hey, I'm actually out here to help mold somebody else into being a high producing person.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I want to like keep in focus when, as I'm going through my career. I know I'm still pretty green as far as construction goes. It's definitely an industry focused on experience. Mm-hmm. But if I can show other young women who didn't think that they could get into construction, that there are good careers in the industry and good opportunity, just so that they know it's an option. Like in high school, I had no idea that I could work in construction because I was always told like, oh, you know, you're too smart. You'll get a good job. You'll be able to do something else with your life. But it's like, this is where I want to be. This is what I enjoy. And I don't know that a lot of girls know that they can try it. So just being a role model for others. And later down the line, when I have more experience, I would love to have more of a direct mentoring role.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely wouldn't knock your age or your experience, because I'm assuming you and I are probably pretty similar in age. if you just go out there and you say, this is what I do, and say, I love doing this, you can be a role model wherever you're at. It doesn't necessarily have to come with experience. It just comes with, do I have a joy and a passion for what I do? And do I want to grow this? And so definitely don't discount your own experience of what you've had so far, because you can still tell a little girl, hey, this is an option and you can do this and you can really enjoy it.
Yeah, and I definitely take every opportunity to share my story, like coming on here, trying to get the word out through Instagram and LinkedIn. Those are my social medias that I use most frequently. And definitely being a part of organizations that are working on getting the message out. I'm part of the National Association of Women in Construction here in Nashville.
Nice.
So I'm pretty actively involved in a lot of their events, and they focus on like being out in the community and everything. So yeah, just every opportunity to reach the next generation. And I think you're part of crew too as well.
Yeah.
So that's definitely hopefully going to help.
Yeah, I think so. I think that just getting the options out there, because it's like you're saying, a lot of kids, and especially a lot of girls, don't know that you can do this as a career. But even a lot of guys don't know that are in middle school, high school. They don't realize that it's an option because they've just been told, yeah, everybody goes to college or you become a deadbeat. So, which isn't true at all. That's just what has been preached for so long. And I think that any time that we can tell the stories, then you can make it cool. You can say, yeah, this is badass work that we do.
Yeah, all the messaging out there is like construction is a last resort kind of job, and only a certain kind of person works construction. And that's just not true anymore. I mean, we need smart people in construction because most of the time you're just trying to solve problems. That's a lot of what the day consists of. You got to look at something and figure out if it's going to work, why it doesn't work. There's a lot of math involved sometimes. So just making sure that all kids know that it's an option, no matter what your skill level is, no matter how well you do in school. Like there are all kinds of different jobs in this industry, from the office to the field. And forgot what I was going to say.
That happens. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is in construction, there's so many different roles. I mean, you can get an accounting degree and come to construction. You can get, like you're saying, you have a communications degree, which is probably pretty valuable in construction, because communication is literally like the number one skill you got to have, because there's so many different people, so many different ethnicities, so many different roles. I mean, in a day, I might talk to a guy that speaks Spanish, a guy that speaks Marshallese, a guy that it's his first day on the job, a guy that like a county commissioner type, an owner, and an operator, and everybody in between. And you have to make sure everybody's on the same page. And so communication is a very important thing. So I think that that's cool that you actually got that degree as opposed to like a construction engineering degree or management degree or something. And now you're still in the industry.
Yeah, and in addition to like the person-to-person communication, you have like the business side of it, where you have to be thinking about, what does the job site look like? When is the owner coming on site? And managing like the client relationships as well. So something that I think overlaps so much that a lot of people don't see is job site cleanliness is as much safety as it is PR.
Yes.
And it can really affect like the culture of a job. And if you have an owner or an inspector or an engineer that just drops by, you want that job site to look as good as possible, or they're immediately going to have like negative thoughts about the job. They're going to be looking for problems because it's messy, and it trickles out so far, and it affects like the overall business and the image of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's completely true. So that summer that I was kind of in that assistant role, all I did was basically clean the job site, make sure all the trash was picked up, all the stuff was off the floor, things were leaned up against the wall as opposed to on the ground in the middle of the place, and just making sure everybody cleaned up all their shit at the end of the day. And it's exactly that. Like if somebody walks in and it's just a freaking bomb went off, for one, like you're saying, major safety risk. And two, it just looks bad and it reflects on the quality.
Yeah, definitely a clean job is a job that the people who work on it care about.
Yeah. So whenever you got into the construction field, did you just go the building route because that's what your dad did and that's just what you wanted to try? Like, have you just had the two jobs, like the one that with the same company as your dad, and then the one you have now?
Yeah, so I went straight into like general contractor and vertical construction,
Hmm.
basically because it was right there. I talked to a lot of the trade guys on site, and they were all like, "Oh, you should be, a plumbing apprentice. You should join the electrical union. Come be an operator with the site guys. We could really use you." And it was so tempting. I definitely missed some of the hands-on from the landscaping, but I stuck with it. I was like, I haven't been doing this long enough. I need to learn a little bit more. And
Hmm.
4 years in, I feel like just I've got a good foundation, but there's still like a lot to learn, and I'm glad I stuck with it. But I definitely there are days where it's like I could have done something like a little more blue collar. But with the buying the house last year, I bought a fixer upper, so I've been getting plenty of the hands on stuff after work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to learn is owning a house.
Yes,
Huh.
whole different kind of construction, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Especially, is it like an older house or?
not even. I mean, it was built in 1990, but it just
Okay.
hadn't been updated at all. And
Mm.
like it was decently well taken care of, but it wasn't great. So, I mean, I closed on the house, and then the next day I ripped out all the carpet, and like the AC system didn't work at all, so I had to get that replaced before I moved in. I still had my apartment for like 2 months before I moved
Mhm.
into the house, and the whole time I was just working on it, trying to make it livable.
Yeah. Houses are a great, great way to gain experience if you don't have it. There's so much freaking work.
Yeah, especially being in, I've been on two multifamilies, my last two projects. So, and that was the first time. So my first two projects, the project I did in Boston was a renovation. Moved to Nashville, was put on another renovation project, and then I've been put on two stick frame multifamilies since then. So that was my first time seeing like newer construction. I still haven't seen from the ground up. I haven't been on a project since the beginning, which is like my
Mm.
next goal is to see all the underground utilities and all that stuff. So I was building apartments while I was working on my house, and it was like we're putting in the washer and dryer connections and the oven connections at work, and I would go home and be like, okay, this is what I need to do to fix like my washer and dryer connections and move my oven to redo the kitchen and everything. So it was very repetitive but
Yeah.
helpful, learning a lot on both ends.
That's cool. Yeah, I will say though, is like in the GC role, I'll probably offend some GCs when I say this, but like whenever the ground up stuff is happening, like obviously you have your preliminary stuff that you gotta like know and marking things out, knowing where everything goes exactly. But whenever like the dirt and utility guys are on site, usually the GCs are just like chilling. They're like, because the dirt and utility guys have their on site superintendents, they're doing everything. And then, because like whenever I was a tester, we would go and I would do that. I would be testing stuff. And like the GC just on those jobs, they'd always just like sit in the trailer, chill out. And they'd even come out and they'd be like, yeah, man, I literally have nothing to do here because I don't really know what's going on. So
Well,
I don't know that you're missing
I,
too much other than just big equipment and cool shit that the heavy civil guys do.
I mean, I could watch that stuff all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, we do a lot of our own like layouts, and like my company self performs a lot of the concrete. So I
Oh, cool.
think some cases we're a little bit more involved, but it's still something like you got to see the beginning. But construction is, at least vertical construction, is kind of an industry where like if you're just starting out, you're going to be starting on the finish end and then like
Mhm.
working your way back. So, because that's kind of the easiest way to get your foot in the door, like walking into an almost finished apartment and doing like quality control and making sure everything's in the right place. And then you go back to doing all the in-wall and the rough-in inspections and making sure everything's in before the sheetrock goes up. And then you get into like the structural and the bigger mechanical systems that run throughout the building. And it's just, you work your way backwards through the process, learning everything.
Yeah. Start off with the small bites and get bigger as you go. Which that's true. I never really thought about that on a building job. It kind of is like big, huge stuff in the beginning. And then like as you go, it like gets smaller, more detailed each step.
But it also gets more familiar to somebody who's not in construction. Like once you get the walls up, a room looks like a room.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, like this room I'm in, it was built a couple of years ago and it's like, it just looks like a room, but it doesn't feel like a job site, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, we actually last week we had a community group come out and do a tour. It was a bunch of high school kids walking through the project, and we went into an apartment, and the super was explaining, you know, oh, this is the closet, this is a bedroom, then obviously you have the bathroom where the bathtub is, and it was all just framed up. And they were like, whoa, this is a room, this is a closet. It's like, because you can see through all the walls right now. So it's hard for them to like picture what the actual apartment's going to look like when you can see 3 apartments down through all the framing.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that same experience actually just yesterday. I have a friend who's a GC, and the last time I was on his job site, he had the rough framing done. Like that was it. I mean, they hadn't even finished all the framing yet. And he was like telling me, he's like, yeah, this room's going to be this and that. Like it just looked like a building. I mean, it looked like a construction site, a building, whatever. Like you could see that like, yeah, this can be a cool building. And he keeps telling you like in his head, he's got the vision of what it's going to be. But then I walked in yesterday and it was like completely finished. Like he had just finished it a couple days before, like everything was done, punch listed over. And it was like, wow, now this is just a building. Like it's not a construction site anymore, but it's really cool to see. And it's definitely more familiar to someone that would be new. So I got to wonder, how did, because on Instagram, you're the builder with the bow. How did the bow come about?
It just popped into my head. So when I was on that first renovation project in Boston, you know, everybody has stickers on their hard hat, and, you know, some guys have like the really aggressive like skull stickers, or they got all kinds of stuff all over it. And that's like kind of how you show your personality. And I was pretty much the only woman on site, and I was just going to embrace my femininity, even though I'm on a construction site. So I got a big old bow from Michael's and just hot glued it to my hard hat. And when I got this job, I did the same thing. So it was just something that I thought of and wanted to do. And it makes me a little bit more memorable on site. I mean, as if being the only girl most of the time doesn't help me stand out, but usually I get a lot of comments. Guys will be like, oh, like, where can I get one? I want a bow. And it's like, careful what you ask for. I'm going to bring in bows and glue it to all your hard hats when you're not looking.
Do it. That'd be hilarious. That'd be a good prank. Just like when they're on lunch or something, if they leave their hard hat laying around, just start gluing bows to it.
Yeah, get them with like sticky tape so I can just like do it on the fly.
Yeah, that'd be funny. That's a cool thing. I always like it whenever people do something that's memorable, because like, you know, everyone wants to be the best or everyone wants to be number one, but you can't really be the best or number one because it's all a matter of opinion. But you can be memorable and you can always be known as that person. Or if you want to take it and you want to spread things on social media, well, there's a lot of women on social media that are up in construction, stuff like that. And that's great. But you have your kind of signature there with the bow. And I think that's a neat thing you've done.
Yeah. And I definitely won't shy away or try and act like I'm not a girl on site. Like I'm trying to fit in with the guys. It's just, you have to just embrace who you are. And I have no problem owning that when on site.
Yeah. I've had the pleasure to work with several women in construction and women that are in the blue collar roles. And the ones that really try hard to be one of the guys are usually the ones that either just get really annoying or they don't last too long. But the ones that are just like, yeah, I'm a girl, get over it. Those are the ones that everybody likes and everybody wants to be around and work really well because they're not trying to keep a facade up. They're just being themselves, which is what this industry is all about, is be yourself. That's why we're here, because we didn't blend in the boardrooms, or we didn't blend in different places. We blend in on a job site where everybody's just real people.
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying earlier, there are all different kinds of roles in construction, and there could be a spot for everybody, but there's still like, you have to have a certain kind of temperament to be in the field and get along with everybody and just kind of do your own thing without creating drama. And it's not for everybody, but I think it's for more people than they realize.
Yeah, definitely. And that's cool also. And that's something that I've loved about a lot of the women that I've worked with on site, is most of them are not afraid to just be who they are. And I think that that's really cool. And I think that whenever you have someone come on site that's like that, they're like, yeah, whatever, I'm myself, get over it. Then it gives everybody else permission to just drop their guard and quit faking it, or, trying to be someone else and blend in, or however that goes in someone's head. I like it. I like it whenever people just are authentically themselves. Sorry, I brain farted. I was about to say something.
Okay, it happened to me earlier.
Yeah, it happens a lot in this whole podcasting game. Sometimes we edit it out, and sometimes we just let everybody hear it and say, they don't have their life together.
In the silence.
Yeah. Sometimes long pauses are a great dramatic effect. And then talking about them and acknowledging the long pauses, and everybody goes, damn, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Never claimed to. So do you think that in this role you have now, the assistant super role, do you think that that's like, or obviously you would probably go up to like a superintendent role, but like, do you ever have any desire to switch and do something else, or do you want to stay on the path you're on for now?
I'm definitely focused on the path to becoming a superintendent right now. There are days where I daydream about going back to landscaping, but I think I'll stick with construction for now. It's a little bit better money, and I just bought a house, so
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I still do some writing on the side. I've started to freelance a little bit. I've been writing about construction, so it's kind of related still. So I'm definitely open to doing more of that, but still on the path to be a superintendent. I would love to have the opportunity to run my own project one day and be the boss.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your writing then. So what all do you do with that?
So last year I actually had the opportunity to write a cover story for a woman-owned company. I believe they're out of Arizona, somewhere in the Midwest, and they do deep foundations, drilling, and coring. But it was just somebody that I had followed on LinkedIn, and they posted about looking for somebody to write this story, and I just responded like, hey, I'm interested. And I literally just sent in some of my LinkedIn posts as writing samples, because I didn't have any like professional writing before that.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, sure, we'll give it a try. So I wrote for them, and they paid me to do it. So that was like my first experience with that. And then I was kind of interested. I hadn't really thought about doing that before. So I was like, okay, this is out there. There's definitely opportunity for it. So I started looking around a little bit, and I actually had somebody in my network already that had construction writing in their profile. So I just reached out and said, hey, I want to know more about what you do. And he was like, hey, I actually have some things I need help with if you want to like write for me. So I did a couple articles that way. Haven't really got back to it this year, but definitely networking and looking for new, I guess, clients. So
is there a place that people can see what you've done?
I think LinkedIn is the best show right now of what I've done so far. Working on a website, but it's a slow process. I've never done that before.
I know where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, so that's where most of my like professional writing is. But yeah, a lot of it's like blog posts or website content, or stuff for social media, like the longer form. So kind of bringing it back, using my degree a little bit more, but still staying in construction. There's definitely a lot of opportunity out there because usually people who are like, oh, well, I can do freelance writing don't have the construction understanding.
Yeah.
So it's a good place to have crossover.
Yeah, that's really cool because that's something that with Dirty and Driven that I kind of do a little bit. I would like to dabble in it more, but I've always enjoyed the art of writing. And I think that most people, once they start doing it, it's just such a cool thing to do. So that's actually really interesting to me that you do that. What originally got you interested in that part of it?
In writing,
Yeah.
I've always been a writer. I remember like back in, I think it was like second grade or first grade or something. I like wrote a play with my friends and like we acted it out at school and everything. But I've always kept a journal, and that was part of the reason I went to college for communications. Is like public relations and internal communications is a lot of writing, and it was easier than an English degree. So yeah, I've always kept a journal and done a lot of creative writing stuff. Yeah, I've been a storyteller, I guess, my whole life, and I do Toastmasters now too. So it's like public speaking and writing, and I've just always had something or an outlet to like write stories, and yeah, it's always kind of been there. Maybe someday I'll get a novel out, but right now it's construction writing.
Yeah. What is Toastmasters?
It is a public speaking organization. So they have like an international organization and local chapters, and you go and talk in front of people. So, yeah, I've always enjoyed public speaking. I did a lot of it in high school. So that was something that I found after college while I was still looking around for what I was going to do for work. I had a couple part-time jobs, so I had time to explore a little bit, and I joined a club. So they practice like prepared speeches, like longer storytelling, and then there's impromptu speaking. But it's very structured, and they're focused on helping you grow as a speaker, grow as a leader. You can become part of like their executive team to kind of help run the club. But it's a great organization. A lot of companies will, if they have people who do presentations or work in sales, they'll recommend or pay for a membership to a club to help somebody develop their skills. But it's a great place to meet people. Yeah, it's just something that I do for fun.
That's cool. I'll talk to you more about that because I'm interested in that kind of stuff. I really like public speaking. And I think that in the construction world, just to tie it all back, there is such a need right now for storytelling. And that's what people are trying to do on social media with pictures, videos, captions, all that stuff. But just the need for storytelling, I think, is so big right now. So the fact that you have both of those things to where you can write and you can elaborate and you can use the language, but also you have the construction experience and you can see it with your eyes and visualize it, feel it. That makes such an incredible story. And not to mention like safety meetings and stuff. If you're giving a presentation about this is how we're going to do a project, this is our weekly safety meeting that we have to give. If you can go up there and you can do that in an entertaining way, that is a invaluable skill in my opinion, because most safety meetings are a guy reading a piece of paper droning on. But if you can go up there and you can add detail and you can add flair and you can tell a story with it, that's going to stick in people's heads.
Yeah, if you can get people like laughing and engaged at a safety meeting, that's definitely, they're at least paying attention. And yeah, I remember I was in charge of like safety orientations on my first project, and there was a lot about working in an occupied facility. So I was, telling the guys that you can't be cussing in front of little old ladies. And that would usually like get a chuckle. But yeah, there's always going to be speaking to a group, especially in like the management positions. And another thing, you have to be able to tell somebody the same thing like more than one way. If they're not understanding the first time, you can't just keep saying the same words at them. You got to figure out a different way to explain it.
Yes. Yeah, everybody, this is something that I love to talk about. You have to communicate with everybody differently. Everyone is a unique, different individual. So you might say something to this guy, and you might be trying to get the same point across to this guy, and you have to tell it in two completely different ways.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Something that people say with like more women coming into the industry is it kind of breaks up that the stereotypical like construction boss man person where they're you've got the foreman and the superintendent, and they're talking about a problem on site. One of them saying something, one of them saying something else, and I'm just standing there listening to the conversation, and you realize like this guy's talking about something totally different than this guy, but they are not listening to each other, so they have no idea what's going on. And it's like they both think they're getting their point across, but they're only hearing themselves.
Yes. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah, and also like the beauty of storytelling, if you're going and you're dealing with an owner, especially if it's like if you're working for a commercial or corporate owner, it's a little different because they probably have a construction guy that kind of manages that stuff and they probably kind of know what's up. And you can speak construction to them. But like if you're doing something like a business for someone who this is their business and they own it and they are so proud of it, or if you're doing it for someone, you're building a house or you're building something with emotional connection to someone, that can get tough at times because they're going to come in and they're going to go, how in the world is this going to look like what I want it to look like? Like they have a vision in their head and you're building. And right now in the beginning stages or when things are roughed in, they cannot picture it. So you have to be able to paint the picture for them, tell the story of this is how it's going to end up looking like this cool building you want. And that's all storytelling right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, what are any other things that you're involved in with the industry or related that you do on the side that just keeps you going and keeps you motivated and keeps you wanting to come back for more every day?
Actually, I just started an online course for women in leadership. So that's through the University of Tennessee. I was invited, I think it's a newer program, so they invited me to be on like an advisory board. So you like take the course and then give feedback. So I'm excited to be going through that. And then I do a lot with NAWIC. So I'm actually the chair for two separate committees, and Nashville will be hosting this Southeast Regional Spring Conference. So starting probably next month, it's going to get pretty busy with planning for the conference. And then I'm the chair of the Women in Construction Week Committee. So trying to get all our events together for that keeps me pretty busy.
Cool. So do you ever feel that people, like most women I know in the industry are like, nah, dude, like I'm here. Everybody respects it. But like, do you ever feel that people look at you differently or act differently towards you or don't trust you as much because of being a woman?
There are definitely times where that happens. I know there can be times where like I'm in the office or in the job trailer and trade guys will walk in and they'll like scan the room and see that I'm the only person in there and walk out as if it's empty. And it's like, I'm right here. You can ask me for help. I probably know what you're looking for, know where it is, can help you get the answer to whatever question you have. It does happen, but I think it's starting to happen less and less. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to have like a good project team to kind of avoid some of that, but also, to help build up my confidence, because, I still feel new at this and it is a little intimidating at times, but to have good people like on my team around me who are focused on like helping me learn and helping me like step up and take more responsibility really makes a difference. And I've been on quite a few different kinds of project teams, and that's not always there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And I think that some of that too comes with age as well. Like, I feel like whenever you're a younger person on a job site too, you get looked at like that of, I'm not even going to ask that kid for help.
Yeah.
I've run into that.
Sometimes it does feel like age plays more of a role than gender, especially the first couple of years that I was in construction. I was just the young kid. It wasn't really a big deal that I was a girl on site.
Yeah. I think either way. And I feel like there's times whenever people like act like they're being judged because they're a woman or because they're young or because of some other thing. But like, also there's fucking idiots on both ends of the spectrum. Like, there's women in construction who are just dumber than a box of rocks, and there's men in construction that are just dumber than a box of rocks. And those are the people that sometimes I think give everybody else a bad name, sort of thing. But as long as you're humble and you're willing to learn and you're willing to admit, hey, I don't necessarily know the answer to this question or what to do with this problem, but I'm here to figure it out however we need to, whether we need to outsource or bring someone else in or ask someone else. I think that's whenever you gain that respect. And I don't think it matters your gender, your age, or anything. As long as you can stay humble and answer what needs to be answered, but also be willing to say, yeah, I don't know that one.
Yeah, and it's definitely like problem solving for my job is not necessarily like giving them the technical answer of like, oh, this is how you should build it. It's more of, this is where you can find the information that you need to build that the right way. And as soon as you answer one question for somebody, they're going to be much more likely to come back to you for more answers. So it's just getting that first answer for them really helps set the tone for the rest of the job, and having them come back to you for more and more information. And then before you know it, you have an entire section or an entire trade scope where you are the go-to person for all the information related to that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So to any women, young girls, anybody who's either in the industry or looking to get in the industry, what would you say to them?
I would say go for it. You have to try it. It's going to be different from what you expect, but there are people out there who will support you, and you just have to find somebody to take a chance on you. But there's definitely plenty of opportunity, and we need all the help we can get. Yeah.
And I love that you came from a different degree path, a different career in mind, because that tells me that there's companies that are out there that they're willing to hire somebody who is just capable and responsible. It doesn't matter if you got your degree in biology or some wild off the chart degree than construction, if you got a degree, or it doesn't really matter your background, as long as you're capable and you can worry about details and you can figure things out and problem solve and work with people, then this is a great industry for those types. And so if you're in a spot where you don't know what you want to do, or you are doing something and you hate it, then give it a shot.
Yeah, you definitely learn more from trying out a job than trying out a major in college, in my opinion.
100%. Couldn't agree with that more. I learned more from field experience.
It's an industry that takes patience, and that took me a while to really like sit with, because I'm generally not a patient person. It's going to take a year or two before you start to feel comfortable with what you're doing.
Yeah. And then after 2 or 3 years, you start to realize, well, shit, I still don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Yep.
And after 10 years, you realize, shit, I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. That's one thing I've learned is the older I get and the more I'm around people that I've always looked at and thought, man, this person has it all together, the more I realize that none of us know what we're doing.
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, I always ask everybody before I sign off, what is the dirtiest job you've ever had to do?
I mean, landscaping, I was covered in dirt most of the time, but this last project, I came in on a Saturday and we had to clean out the future bioretention area. So we're in a city and they have all these plans for all the stormwater that comes off the roof to be filtered through this bio pond area. So it's going to be like gravel and dirt and there's going to be trees. But before that, it's a big concrete box. So it's like 20 feet deep. It's right on the side of the building. So all kinds of like material, trash has been collecting in there for all the months that we've been putting up the structure. And now it's time to fill it with dirt. We got to clean all that out. So it's got like a foot of water and all kinds of trash. And we're like 20 feet in a hole or in a concrete box. And just had to get in there with all the guys and pull out trash for a couple hours. Everything was green and smelly. And
oh, I bet that was disgusting.
Yeah, it's a good day.
God, I love it. So what is a bioretention area?
It's, it can be all kinds of different things, but on this, it was just a big area where all the drainage water comes off and the gravel, the dirt, and all the layers that they put in filters out the water. And then there's like a drainage area at the bottom. So I'm not sure if it tied back into the city water eventually, but it's basically a giant water filter.
Okay. Just run off and all that good stuff, huh? That doesn't sound fun.
Nope.
That sounds
we got the job done.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, there you go. If you ever want to do something gross and make your nostrils turn, then go clean out a bioretention area. When you said bioretention area, I thought that you were going to say like it pulled up sewage or something. But also green water is probably just as gross.
Yeah. It was basically like a giant dumpster collecting rainwater before we cleaned it out and put the actual dirt in it.
Nice. Cool. Well, anything else you want to say to the people out there?
Thanks for having me, and I hope you like my story.
Yeah, it was great to have you. Thanks for coming on. All right. See you guys.